Alright, today we are going to look at two word problems. One word problem is going to be a one-step word problem, and one is going to be a two-step word problem. So the first thing we have to figure out is which one is one-step and which one is two-step. After we've done that, we are going to go through our entire problem-solving process and actually solve the problem. We're going to do a strip diagram, equation, estimation, and then actually solve. So here's what the first one says. Raya has 278 diamonds. Jorge has 142 diamonds. Mark has 459 diamonds. How many more diamonds does Mark have than Raya? So we read it the first time, so let's go ahead and read it the second time. Raya has 278 diamonds. Jorge has 142 diamonds. Mark has 459 diamonds. How many more diamonds does Mark have than Raya? So I'm looking at this, and if I just look at it really fast, I see three numbers. And a lot of times if I have three numbers, that means I'm going to do two steps. But this one, I'm trying to be tricky. So there's actually some stuff we don't need. So for this part, I don't really care how many diamonds Jorge has, because my question doesn't ask about Jorge. It just asks about Mark and Raya. So I now know that I don't need Jorge, so really this is just a one-step problem. I'm going to compare how many diamonds Mark has compared to Raya, and I want to know how many more Mark has than Raya. So I'm going to make my strip diagram represent that. So my strip diagram is going to look something like this. I know that Mark has 459 diamonds. I know that Raya has 278 diamonds, and I'm trying to figure out how many more he actually has than her. My equation is going to be 459 minus 278 equals question mark, which is going to tell us how many more diamonds Mark has than Raya. So I'm going to go ahead and estimate, and when I estimate, I'm going to continue to do the same thing we've been doing. So I'm going to round as my form of estimation. So I'm going to bring down my equation first so I know what numbers I'm looking at. The first number I'm going to round is 459, and I'm going to round both of these to the nearest 100. So if I'm going to round to the nearest 100, what two hundreds are going to be on either side? What's going to be on this side and what's going to be on this side? Hopefully you said 400 and 500. So I know 400's over here, 500's over here, 459's pretty close to the middle, so it's going to be somewhere right around here. So remember, if it's close to the middle or past the middle, or further, then it's going to go to the bigger of the two numbers. So 459 is going to round to 500. I'm going to do the same thing for my next number, which is 278. So I'm going to go ahead and set it up. For 278, I'm going to have 200 on this side, and I'm going to have 300 on this side. 278 is closer to this side, so that tells me that 278 is closer to 300, so that means that 278 rounds to 300. Now my new equation that I'm going to solve is going to be 500 minus 300 equals how many more diamonds Mark has than Raya. So I'm going to go ahead and use my place value discs to help me. So I'm going to have 500. There are my 500s, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And I'm going to get rid of 300. And remember, whenever we subtract, to get rid of it, we just put an X over it. So I'm going to get rid of 100, 200, 300. And I'm left with, that's right, 200. So I know my answer is going to be somewhere around 200 more diamonds. Now today we are actually going to solve. So if I solve, I'm going to go ahead and bring down my equation. So I'm doing 459 minus 278 equals question mark, which tells me how many more diamonds Mark has than Raya. Again, I'm going to use my place value discs. So I'm going to model 459 because that's the bigger of the two numbers. So here's my 459, 100, 200, 300, 400, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to take away 278. So I'm going to start in my ones place, and I'm just going to take away 8 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to move to my tens place, and I'm going to take away 7 groups of 10. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah! I don't have any more 10s. What am I going to do? That's right, I have to borrow from my hundreds place. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off 100, and I'm going to borrow. And remember, it takes 10 tens to build 100. So I'm going to borrow 10 tens. So there are my 10 tens, and I made them yellow because that's what color the hundreds are, just to help me. And now I can continue. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 10, and I need 2 more groups of 10. So there's my 6th group of 10 and my 7th group of 10. Now I've taken away 7 tens, so I know I'm done. Finally, I'm going to take away my hundreds, so I'm going to take away 200. So I have 100 and 200. So now I'm finished, so I need to figure out what my actual answer is. So I'm going to go ahead and do it in expanded form first. So I have 100, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and I have 1. So if I write it in expanded form, it would be 100 plus 80 plus 1. And if I actually compose those numbers together, it would give me 181 more diamonds. Let's look at our next question. So our next question says, Raya has 278 diamonds. Jorge has 142 diamonds. Mark has 459 diamonds. How many diamonds do Raya, Jorge, and Mark have all together? So I read it one time, so now I'm going to read it a second time. So it says Raya has 278 diamonds. Jorge has 142 diamonds. Mark has 459 diamonds. How many diamonds do Raya, Jorge, and Mark have all together? Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Miss Belch, you're silly. These are the same people, and they're still diamonds, and they're the same number of diamonds. And you're right. But the question's different. So this time, instead of just looking at Raya and Mark, I actually want to include Jorge, and I want to know how many diamonds they all have together. So for my strip diagram, I could do it a couple of different ways. Since this is technically a two-step problem, I could have 2 strip diagrams. But I could also just have one, and it could have multiple parts. Either way works, so it just depends on which way you want to do it. I'm going to have one strip diagram, but it's going to have multiple parts. So if I do that, it's going to look something like this. So I know Raya has 278 diamonds, Jorge has 142 diamonds, Mark has 459 diamonds, and I'm trying to figure out how many diamonds they have all together. So using my strip diagram, I can make my equation. And I'm going to do exactly what my strip diagram is telling me. I'm going to add 278 plus 142 plus 459, and that's going to give me how many diamonds I have all together. So there's my equation. Now I'm going to do my estimation, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my equation down just so I remember what numbers I'm using. Again, I'm going to use rounding as my form of estimation. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 278. I know that 278 is going to have 200 on this side and 300 on this side. And if I round 278, it's going to go to the closest one. So is it closer to 200 or is it closer to 300? That's right, it's closer to 300. So I'm able to say 278 rounds to 300. Now I'm going to use my next number, which is 142. I have 100 on this side. I have 200 on this side. Now 142 is kind of tricky because it's pretty close to the middle. It's not exactly in the middle, but it's close. But is 142 closer to 100 or is 142 closer to 200? That's right, it's closer to 100, just barely. But it's still closer to 100. So I'm going to say 142 rounds to 100. My last number I have is 459, and I'm going to do the same thing. I have 400 on this side. I have 500 on this side. Again, 459 is pretty close to the middle, but it's a little bit further than the middle, just by a little bit. So is 459 closer to 400, or is 459 closer to 500? That's right, it's closer to 500. So I'm going to round 459 to 500. Now I am going to actually solve what 300 plus 100 plus 500 is equal to, and that's going to tell me how many diamonds they have all together. So I'm going to go ahead and use a number line to help me. So here is my number line. My first hop is going to be from 0 all the way to 300, and when I do that, I'm at 300. Now I'm going to add 100 more, and when I do that, I'm at 400, and finally I'm going to add 500 more, and now I'm at 900. So that tells me that I have about 900 diamonds all together. Now I actually want to solve the actual problem. So I'm going to bring my equation down. So I have 278 plus 142 plus 459, and that's going to tell me how many diamonds we have all together. Again, I'm going to use a number line, but before that, I'm going to go ahead and decompose these numbers into expanded form. So 278 is going to be, excuse me, 200 plus 70 plus 8. 142 is going to be 100 plus 40 plus 2. And 459 is going to be 400 plus 50 plus 9. I already have my number line drawn, and now I'm going to go ahead and put in my hops. So I'm going to have a hop of 200, so I'm going to start at 0 and go 200, and I'm at 200. I'm going to go 100 more because that's my next 100. And now I'm at 300, and I'm going to go 400 more because that's my next 100. And when I go 400 more, now I'm at 700. Now I'm going to go back to my 10s, so now I'm at 70, so I'm just going to have a hop of 70, which gets me to 770. Now my next one, I'm actually going to change a little bit. So it says 40, and I could add 40, but I'm going to go ahead and break 40 or decompose 40 into 10 and 30. Why would I decompose 40 into 10 and 30? Well, I'm going to go ahead and decompose 40 into 10 and 30 because that's going to help me get to friendlier numbers. So if I'm at 770 and I add 30 more, now I'm at 800. But I still have to add more because I only added 30. So now I'm going to go ahead and add that 10. There's 30 and there's 10, which gives me back to 40. And now I'm at a total of 810. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my 50. So 810 plus 50 more. Now I'm at 860. And now I'm going to go back to my ones place. So I'm going to start back over at my 8. 860 plus 8 gives me 868. 868 plus 2 more gives me 870. And finally, 870 plus 9 gives me a total of 879. So my answer was 879 diamonds altogether. Now remember, the final step is to make sure that our answer is reasonable, so we check it with our estimation. So I said that our actual was 879 diamonds, and I said that our estimate was 900. So I know my answer is reasonable because those two numbers are close together.